Did you know Haiti was once the wealthiest colony in the Americas? Today, it is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Caught in an endless loop of chess games, they won a few but lost many. Are France, Spain, and the US behind this?
Haiti has been a neo-colony of the U.S., France, and Canada, most particularly the U.S., since 1915 when U.S. Marines invaded.
This is the story of how Haiti went from a rich, thriving colony to a country largely controlled by gang leaders or revolutionaries.
In 1492, it wasn't Christopher Columbus who discovered Haiti. It was the native people of Haiti who discovered him when he arrived on their island. After studying countless research papers, we found that the real story is often flipped. Let's dive into the truth history books rarely tell. Columbus arrived Haiti with ships and many men, but the native Haitians, being kind and peaceful, saw no reason to worry. To them, he was just another visitor. They welcomed Columbus and his crew with food, gifts, and help. Columbus wrote in his journals about their kindness, calling them peaceful and generous people. I know you're waiting for the plot twist, and yes, there was one. Things quickly took a turn for the worst, and here is how it all happened. But first, a little background for context. Before Haiti became Haiti, it was called Haiti, which means the land of high mountains. And the land was rich in gold. The people who lived in the land were called the Taino people. There were skilled fishermen and there were farmers. This would help you understand the story and why France and Spain occupied the land. When Columbus arrived, everything changed. He claimed the island for Spain, as European explorers often did. He raised the Spanish flag and renamed the island Hispaniola, marking the start of a new and troubling chapter for the Taino people. Since the Haitians were friendly and peaceful, Columbus formed a bond with their leader, Guacangari. This helped him set up a settlement called La Navidad for some of his men while he continued his journey. But before we move on, think about this. Were the native Haitians wrong for welcoming these unexpected newcomers? Can we blame Christopher Columbus for any part of Haiti's ongoing struggles? Share your thoughts in the comment section. When Columbus went back to Spain, he told the Spanish king and queen about what he had found. They were excited and claimed the island as theirs, sending more settlers and supplies to take over the land. Soon, the Spanish started taking resources and forcing the native Haitians to work for them. This made the Haitians very unhappy, and their friendship turned into conflict. Over time, the Spanish took complete control, and life became very difficult for the Haitians. By the mid 16th century, the gold Spain initially sought in Hispaniola had been largely exhausted. This made Spain shift its focus to other more profitable colonies like Mexico and Peru, which had abundance of gold and silver. Hispaniola, particularly the western part that became Haiti, was now less important to Spain as a colony. The population of the native Haitians had dramatically declined due to diseases brought by Europeans, coupled with the intense labor and maltreatment of Haitians, leaving few labor resources for the Spanish. Around the 17th century, the French buccaneers and settlers began to establish a presence on the western part of Hispaniola, primarily near Tortuga Island and other coastal areas. Because Spain was focusing on the other regions, they could not successfully defend or maintain control of the western part of the island. In 1695, Spain officially handed over the western part of Hispaniola to France under a Treaty of Ryswick. This treaty ended a 9-year war between France and Spain over Haiti and other things. In order to help you understand what this war was mostly about, here are some key points of the treaty. 1. Territorial adjustment. France and Spain agreed to divide control of the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. Spain gave up the western third of the island to France, which became modern-day Haiti, while Spain retained control of the eastern part, which is now Dominican Republic. 2. Restoration of territories. During the 9-year war, many European territories that had been occupied by the warring nations were returned to their original rulers. For example, France returned Luxembourg to Spain and other towns of the Spanish Netherlands back to Spain. 3. Recognition of William III. France now recognized William III as the legitimate King of England, officially ending French support for the deposed James II, who had been exiled after the Glorious Revolution in 1688. 4. Dutch fortifications. France agreed to allow the Dutch to maintain control along the Spanish Netherlands border to secure their territory against future French aggression. Notice how none of these points included or said anything about the welfare of Haitians. As a matter of fact, their home was shared and divided without their input, as it was just another commodity. As strange as this might seem, not only Haiti suffered this, it was the order of the day back in those days. After France took over Haiti from Spain, they renamed it Saint Domingue and they developed it into a plantation colony. This newly French colonized colony quickly became one of the richest colonies in the world because of its production of sugar, coffee, and tobacco. But this wealth was built on the back of enslaved Africans. The French brought hundreds of thousands of Africans to Saint Domingue to work on the plantations under brutal conditions. Enslaved people were treated terribly, overworked, beaten, and given very little food or rest. Life was so harsh that many enslaved people did not live long. But despite this suffering, the enslaved Africans began to resist, forming secret groups to plan rebellions. By the late 1700s, tensions were growing. The French Revolution, which was happening in France at the time, spread ideas about liberty, equality, and human rights. These ideas reached the enslaved people in Saint Domingue, and they began to demand their freedom. In 1791, a revolution unlike any other began, one that would change the course of history, the Haitian Revolution. This was not just a fight for freedom, it was a fight for survival, and it became the most successful slave rebellion in history. How it all started. The island of Saint Domingue, now in Haiti, was under brutal French colonial rule, where enslaved Africans worked the sugar and coffee plantations in horrific conditions. It was here that the flames of revolution were lit. On August 21st, 1791, after years of suffering, enslaved people rose up in massive revolt. The rebellion started in the north and quickly spread like wildfire across the island. The man who would lead them to freedom was Toussaint Louverture, a former slave who had a remarkable story of his own. Born into slavery, Toussaint secretly learned to read and write, a rare achievement for an enslaved person at the time. He mastered French, African languages, and even studied philosophy and military tactics, learning from books left by their plantation owners in the library. This education, combined with his sharp mind and leadership skills, made Toussaint the perfect strategist for the revolution. The war wasn't just a one-sided battle, it was a complex decade-long fight with many players involved. At first, the Haitian rebels, an army of enslaved people, faced off against French colonists who had rifles, cannons, and soldiers trained in European warfare. The Haitians, however, fought with whatever they could find, machetes, spears, and stolen muskets. But what they lacked in firepower, they made up in strategy. They knew the rugged mountainous terrains of the island, using it to their advantage for ambushes and surprise attacks. The rebels communicated and planned their attacks in secret, often under the cover of the night. While still enslaved, they held secret meetings in fields and forests, hiding from their masters. They used songs and coded messages to spread information without arousing suspicion. The island's terrain was key to their success. Dense forests, steep mountains, and rivers gave the Haitian fighters cover and natural defenses. Toussaint and his generals would lead their forces through the mountains, attacking the French where they were weakest, then retreating into the wilderness. These hit-and-run tactics kept the French forces on edge. As the revolution progressed, Toussaint introduced more organized military strategies. He divided his troops into smaller units, trained them in guerrilla warfare, and built alliances with the freed people of color. These fighters often wore simple clothes like linen shirts and pants, but they knew the island's geography far better than their enemies. They were masters of blending into the environments, launching attacks and disappearing before the French could strike back. The conflict soon escalated, drawing in other powers. By 1793, the British and the Spanish entered the fray, hoping to take advantage of the chaos to grab control of the island. Toussaint was not just a military leader, he was a brilliant diplomat. He managed to make strategic alliances with the Spanish and the British when it served his purposes, only to turn on them later when it was in the interest of the Haitians. In 1794, the French government, under pressure from growing revolution, declared an end to slavery in their colonies. But the fight for independence was far from over. In 1797, Toussaint, now commanding massive army of tens of thousands of former slaves, pushed the British forces out of Saint-Domingue. He used clever tactics to maneuver their well-trained troops. In 1801, Toussaint declared himself governor for life of Saint-Domingue and established a constitution, effectively running the colony as an independent nation. This bold move alarmed the French. In 1802, Napoleon Bonaparte, eager to reassert French control, sent his brother-in-law, General Charles Leclerc, with 40,000 French troops and a fleet of warships to crush the revolution. The French forces were well equipped with rifles, cannons, and warships, but the Haitians had something stronger: the will to be free. Despite fierce resistance, Toussaint was eventually captured in 1802. Betrayed under the guise of peace negotiation, he was sent to France, where he died in prison in 1803. But the revolution didn't die with him. Toussaint's generals, including Jean-Jacques Dessalines, took over leadership. Dessalines was ruthless and determined. Under his command, the Haitian forces regrouped and launched a final series of attacks. The French soldiers, unfamiliar with the tropical climate, fell victim to yellow fever and their forces were decimated. By November 1803, Dessalines and his army delivered a crushing blow to the French at the Battle of Bertieres, effectively ending the war. Over 100,000 Haitians had died in the struggle, along with tens of thousands of French, British, and Spanish troops. The war had taken a heavy toll, but victory was in sight. On January 1st, 1804, Haiti declared its independence, becoming the first black republic in the world and the first country to permanently abolish slavery. The revolution had succeeded against all odds, shaking the foundations of the colonial world. Haiti's independence was a huge victory, but it didn't come without problems. After the revolution, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, one of Toussaint's generals, became the first leader of Haiti. Dessalines declared himself emperor but was assassinated 2 years later in 1806. This marks the beginning of a long history of political instability in Haiti. France was furious about losing its richest colony and demanded that Haiti pay reparations for the loss of their property. In 1825, France sent warships to force Haiti to pay a debt of 150 million francs. This debt crippled Haiti's economy for more than a century, and it wasn't until 1947 that Haiti was able to pay it off. The debt, combined with Haiti's lack of support from other nations and internal political struggles, made it difficult for the new nation to develop. But Haitian people kept moving forward despite the obstacles they faced. After Haiti achieved independence in 1804, it faced a new battle, this time against foreign interference. The country, born from the most successful slave revolt in history, stood as a symbol of hope for enslaved people everywhere. But to the world's major powers, especially those with their own slave economies, Haiti was a threat. And none of these nations had a more complicated relationship with Haiti than the United States. For decades after Haiti's revolution, the United States refused to recognize Haiti as an independent nation. Why? Because Haiti's victory was a direct challenge to the institution of slavery, which was still legal in the United States at the time. Acknowledging Haiti would have sent a dangerous message to the millions of enslaved people in the United States that freedom was possible. Despite this, Haiti endured. The new nation struggled to establish a stable government and an economy, all while under the threat from colonial powers like France, which demanded crippling reparations, and other nations that sought to control Haiti's future. The real turning point came in 1915. Haiti was in political turmoil. One of many Haitian presidents had just been assassinated, and the country was on the brink of chaos. Seizing the moment, the United States invaded Haiti under the claim of restoring order. But this wasn't just about stabilizing the country, it was about controlling it. President Woodrow Wilson ordered United States Marines to occupy Haiti, beginning what would become a 19-year military occupation. The true motives behind the invasion were more complicated. The US was not only concerned about the instability, but also about protecting American business interests in the Caribbean and asserting dominance in the region. Once the United States forces arrived, they quickly took control of Haiti's finances. The National Bank of Haiti and its reserves were transferred to New York, giving the US control over Haiti's economy. They also reorganized Haiti's military, training Haitian soldiers and building a new police force to maintain order, but under US direction. The US also embarked on building infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and ports. On the surface, this seemed like a positive development. However, the methods used were often exploitative. Forced labor was reintroduced under the Covey system, where Haitians were made to work on infrastructure projects without pay. This system resembled the very conditions of slavery they had fought to escape. Many Haitians saw the US presence as an occupation, not a partnership. The Haitian people were stripped of their sovereignty, and resentment grew. The occupation sparked uprisings, particularly in the rural areas. Armed groups known as Cacos, led by figures like Charlemagne Peralta, waged guerrilla warfare against the US forces. These freedom fighters operated in the mountainous regions using their knowledge of the landscape to launch surprise attacks on US troops. Despite their efforts, the Cacos were eventually crushed and Peralta was killed in 1919. His death, however, made him a national hero and a symbol of resistance against foreign forces. Throughout the occupation, many Haitians resisted the US presence in more subtle ways. Intellectuals and leaders spoke out against the violation of Haiti's sovereignty. Newspapers published editorials criticizing the exploitation of Haiti's resources, and public protests erupted in the capital, Port-au-Prince. At the same time, the US government justified their actions by pointing to the improvements they had made: better infrastructure, more organized governance, and reformed military. But these improvements came at a cost. While roads and buildings were constructed, many Haitians felt their culture, freedom, and identity were being dismantled. After nearly 2 decades of occupation, the situation became unstable. The global political climate was shifting, and there was growing pressure for the US to leave Haiti. The Great Depression also forced the US to reconsider its costly overseas engagements. Finally, in 1934, under President Franklin, the US officially withdrew its troops. However, their influence didn't disappear with their departure. US trained Haitian military leaders remained in power, and American businesses continued to hold sway over Haiti's economy. Although the US occupation ended, its impact on Haiti's politics, military, and economy was long lasting. The US left behind a centralized military force that would later play a significant role in Haiti's unstable political future. Many of the power struggles and dictatorships that emerged in Haiti's later years were a direct result of the systems the US put in place during the occupation. Economically, the US had opened Haiti up to foreign interest, and this laid the foundation for future economic exploitation in the years to come. Haiti's natural resources were often exported to benefit American businesses, while the Haitian people continued to face poverty and instability. The 19-year US occupation of Haiti is a chapter filled with both construction and destruction. On one hand, infrastructure was built, and Haiti's military was restructured. On the other hand, the Haitian people were stripped of their freedom and autonomy. The occupation planted the seeds of resentment and distrust that would grow for decades, shaping Haiti's future in ways that are still felt today.